Probably it's possible to jump into the materiality analysis of a company without looking left or right. However, I always found that adding an additional step at the beginning helped me save a lot of time and also make the ESG report and the materiality analysis much better. In this video, I will show you how I usually do a thorough sector check and which resources I will be using for that. I will also show you the prompts that I use when I involve AI to help me find the best results. And I will show you in the end what I do with the results that I get. In the first step, there are 3 resources that I usually use to get a first assessment. These 3 resources are very different and help me in a very different way. I will walk you through all 3 of them. So the first resource is the one that helps me understand the business models of the company. And I read this directly after I sat down with one person who knows the company very well and explains to me what they're doing. This step is especially important if I don't know the company at all or not very well, and if I need to understand all the business models and all the services and products that they are producing. The resource that I use is reading the management report. In this management report, I scan for all the risks that might show up. The second resource that I usually use directly after reading the management report is related to that. So as soon as I know which sector the company is operating in, or which sectors, could also be several, if the products or services are diverse, then I can jump to the SASB homepage and find out about the sector-specific standard. I can then download it and really scan through and find out about all the financially material topics for that company. And it helps me a lot because it already gives me all the topics that are relevant plus the KPIs. And that will help me later when preparing the materiality assessment and when preparing also the ESG report. So if I look up for the healthcare sector, I see that energy management, waste management, and patient privacy are most important topics. And I see all these topics with the categories, the KPIs, and the metrics themselves. And I also even get sort of sample tables that I can use for providing the information that is needed. To be on the safe side, I also check the GRI standards for the sector I'm operating in. Yeah, they're not available for all of the sectors, but if it's available, it's also a good resource. And then the third resource that I'm using, I would call it a secret weapon for materiality assessment because it's offering a lot of additional information. It's also offering links to documents which you can use then for the documentation of all the processes. I only discovered it recently, but I make a lot of use of it, especially for several sectors. It's a really good source of information. It is an Excel table and it's even aligned with the CSRD standards. This resource is really cool because it can help me to discover what is important for my sector. So I can type in the sector that I'm in, it giving me NACE codes and other codes, and then I can search the documents for the positive or negative impacts that the sector usually might have. I can scan it through and then I see to which of the standards or which of the sector like documents mention this as a topic that is important for the sector. I can also find a lot of resources that link to this specific topic, and it really helps me to find out more. I've got all the sources listed, so I can use that later for the documentation. Now, if I want to see what's relevant for one sector, I can scroll to the right and directly have an overview what is positive, what is negative. It helps me a lot. Now looking at it for a different sector, the construction sector, for example, which has a lot of topics, I can see that which ones are relevant, in this case negative impact on the world, and I can go through it one by one. I can add the relevant sources to it, which I see in the sources table there, and I can use that for all the documentation that I need to do. Then my next step helps me to see the sector or the industry I'm looking into from within. I read the ESG reports of competitors, and if it is a producing company, then I also read the ESG reports of customers, if it's B2B, of course, only. And I can also include a view into the suppliers' ESG reports. That helps me understand what is relevant for the industry itself, for the customers, and for the suppliers. So I get a very good 360 round view of all the industry. First, looking into this competitor's ESG report, which is giving me a lot of insights. I first can see according to which standards they are reporting. This is relevant for the industry. I can see the highlights, all the most important numbers that they have. And then I can learn about their targets and their goals. And they also have the most material topics according to E for environmental, social, and governance. Then I can learn about all the stakeholders they consulted. Those are most likely the stakeholders that are also relevant for myself, and I see exactly which material topics they see for themselves. Another competitor's report, which is giving me some different insights, also again some numbers. I can learn a lot about this company and what is important to them. So again, their most important topics. The ESG scorecard is very good for me because there I can see which metrics they use, and it might make sense to use the same or similar metrics for the company. So all in all, very useful. Also the text that they wrote about it, it's really worth having a read. Using AI, I get some really good results. First, I get the results which of the topics are important for which of the standards, and that is again helping me to discover which will be the most important topics for the company. I get a list again about all the topics according to relevance for the company. Then asking to align it with the AR16 table that is given by ESRS. It also gives me a recommendation whether I should include it or whether I should consider it, so that might be on a future watch list, or whether I can exclude a topic because it's not really relevant for the industry. I still have to look at it in detail. It's very general and it might not be applicable to the company I will be assessing in specific. So I will have to have a closer look, but it's helping me to get the good understanding and to find out what is the most important topics. The next prompt I use is a time-saving one. I simply ask AI to scan all the competitors' reports for me. I can add all the competitors I want to include. I can also use customers if it is a producing company, or I can use suppliers' ESG reports, and it is basically scoring all the topics according to relevance for those competitors or the customers. I was doing that manually before, now I can do it using AI. Once I've gathered all the information from these steps before, I feel prepared for the next step. I also have a pretty good understanding about the industry or sector and all its surroundings. I can use the information I gathered to prepare the next step, the materiality analysis, and I will show in one of the next videos how I do that. And I can also use it for how I feel the most important step in ESG reporting. A step that cannot be left out because we can only improve what we measure, and so it's all about the data gathering. With this knowledge, I know most likely which data I have to gather. I can already set up the processes, I can involve the people that are relevant to gathering the data, and I can start to collect the data already and see what's the quality and how can we improve that. Sure, there might be some changes after the materiality analysis. I might have to add some data afterwards or even take out some data which I don't need as urgently. However, it is so important to start right away with the data gathering and the data processes that I would not want to wait. Knowing a lot about the sector is very important, but as important is to know a lot about project management. And if you haven't seen my video about that, I would recommend you to watch this video next to see how I set up my project planning for the ESG reporting project.